Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Avidyne webinar. Today's topic is IFD Wi-Fi connectivity, connecting the IFD with the IFD100 app and Foreflight. My name is William Reichert. I'm the Senior Field Service Engineer for Avidyne. I'm joined today by Billy DeMauro, our Digital Marketing Specialist, and Tom Harper, our Senior Director of Marketing. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We will address those at the end. And this webinar is being recorded, so it will be posted onto YouTube later. So be on the lookout for that. To preface this webinar applies to IFDs with software 10.3 only. So any sort of 10.3 software. So if you have questions regarding software on 10.3, or sorry, pre-10.3, so 10.2.6.1 or any of those flavors before, go ahead and contact us, pilotsupport@avidyne.com, or you can go to YouTube and we have actually videos that address a lot of these questions here. And an overview of what we're going to try and accomplish today. So we'll talk about the iPad and app requirements for both Foreflight and the IFD100, how to set up and check the IFD for Wi-Fi connectivity, how to set up the IFD100 app, and also how to set up Foreflight for connecting to the IFD. And we'll also go over some small little user things like how to transfer flight plans from Foreflight. And then we'll also go through using split screen between the IFD100 app and Foreflight. We'll also follow this up with some resources and of course your questions and our answers at the end. So some iPad and app requirements. For those of you that use the IFD100, you'll need iPad operating software 9.1 or later. So the IFD100 version must be IFD100 10.3, and you'll actually see that in the App Store and on the app icon, not the 10.2 version. And with Foreflight, you need iPad OS 16 or later, and the current Foreflight version is 16.11.1. And it's always recommended to have the latest software for Foreflight because they do incorporate a lot of changes, and one of those changes actually addressed some flight plan transfer problems when we made our iteration of software 10.3. So setting up the IFD for Wi-Fi connectivity. This is getting right into it. So go ahead and turn on the IFDs, and we're going to acknowledge the acknowledgements pages, right? Once we have that done, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to work with the 550 just for the sake of real estate. We're going to press the auxiliary button. We're going to press the setup tab, and you can either use the two-way rocker switch function, or you can actually use the touch screen between the tabs. We're going to go to the connectivity menu. I'm going to open that up. Make sure that Wi-Fi is set to on. All right, and here's something else that may help you. If you have a dual IFD installation, check the network name so you know which IFD you're connecting to. So I'll even do this in the 440 here. Set up connectivity. See, Wi-Fi is turned off. If I were to go down to networks, here's the IFD Wi-Fi name on the 440. Anything that says IFD hotspot is the actual broadcasted Wi-Fi from that IFD. So in this case here, we're going to be connecting to the 550. So we're going to be looking for Avi_1_Wi-Fi. And the default password for all IFDs, so if you open up the actual network name, it's ABCDEF, and I can zoom this in a little bit. ABCDEF1234. That is the default IFD password. A couple of reminders about the IFD100 app. So the IFD100 app is not used for at-home flight planning. So the IFD is only designed for use when connected to the actual panel-mounted IFD in your aircraft. You can connect it to the iPad trainer or the IFD trainer on another iPad, that's fine. but without a connection to an IFD or the IFD trainer. The IFD 100 functionality, it's basically like a remote. So if you make a flight plan at home and you bring it to your aircraft and connect the IFD 100 to your IFD in your aircraft, it's going to mirror what the IFD has in it, which is nothing. So your flight plan will be deleted no matter how complex it is. There's no chance of getting it there. And we also get a lot of questions on this, is they update their IFD 100 with the latest Jeppesen data, which includes the charts. So your approach plates, taxi diagrams, things like that. The IFD 100 won't show a charts tab unless it's connected to the actual IFD in your aircraft or the IFD trainer. So you won't be able to see any charts at all. So you'll just have to go by the fact that you've updated them and they show that on the database status page in the IFD 100 that they show up to date. So let's get into setup of the IFD 100 real quick. So coming over to the iPad. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the actual settings of your iPad. All right, so we're going to scroll down on the left-hand side until we get to IFD 100 version 10.3. You're going to want to make sure that you are selected for the correct IFD type. So we are connecting to an IFD 550. So make sure 550 selected. 550 is the default. IFD chassis ID. In most cases, your top unit's the number 1 and your lower unit's the number 2. So I'm connecting to the top unit, or chassis ID number 1. So chassis ID number 1 is selected. And iPads, we have only one iPad in the mix here using the IFD 100. So we're only going to select iPad 1 and ADS or Wi-Fi ADS-B support. This confuses a lot of people. This is only when you have something like a Stratus 3 or Strat-Tux, which can provide your iPad with ADS-B traffic and weather. So, and it has to be the capstone protocol. Sentry and Stratus 1 or 2 won't work with the IFD 100, but they will work with ForeFlight. So that is the setup for the IFD 100 as far as the actual app configuration. The next thing we have to do is we actually have to make sure the databases in IFD 100 are up to date. So with IFD 100, you use your Jeppesen credentials. You would just enter your username and password there, and then you would press login. In my case, I'm using the demo databases, but it still works the same. So I'll just go ahead and just pretend I hit login there, and it takes you to this exact same page here. So you'll need navigation databases, your nav data, specific to your region, which you'll only have the ones on there for your subscription. So you won't have this many on there at all. So nav data, obstacle data. You will need the Avidyne map data, and the cycle is August 3 of 2021, the same that you will see. There hasn't been any updates to that, but that's not a problem. And then you will also need terrain data, which also is a pretty old database, but there hasn't been any updates to it since August 5th of 2015. So once you have all that downloaded, you can actually hit start, and it takes you to a blank IFD 100 screen.
Hey, Will.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Can you go back to the setup page and just go through connecting the actual iPad to the hotspot where you put your password in for the first time?
Okay, so let's go here. So now that we have that all set up as if we were at home, so let's say that we're in our aircraft now and the IFD 100's all been updated. So we're going to go to Wi-Fi in the main settings of the iPad. And remember, we're trying to connect to, let me move it this way, Avi_1_Wi-Fi. So I'll try and get both in view here. Here's Avi_1_Wi-Fi. I've already connected to it, so it already knows the password, which is again ABCDEF1234, unless you've changed it, and you can check it. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and open up the IFD 100 app. And I'll start this completely over again for the ForeFlight demonstration. So now that we have that, oh, you see the frequencies just popped up here. Once the iPad is connected and you have the frequencies, normally you'll get a little green icon here that asks or says there's a new connection request. So what we're going to do now is right from here on this page of the IFD, let me zoom in a little bit, this might help. So here we go, connectivity. We've already connected to everything. We were at networks. So we'll just continue scrolling down until we get to devices. So this string of numbers right here that you'll see at the top, let me move this up a little bit. So that is my iPad's IP address, Internet Protocol address. When you first have an iPad connected to something, or even your iPhone, it'll always come up as blocked, right? So you just want to tap that, or like I'm doing, pushing the button in, and then turn the inner knob to allow always, push the button in again, and it turns green. And then you'll see right below that, we have another item there that says ADSB over Wi-Fi. If your aircraft has ADSB in equipment installed and is connected to your IFD, so you do get traffic and weather on your IFD in the aircraft, you can actually turn this on, and what that does, it sends information over to the iPad, whether that's Foreflight or the IFD100. So if you don't have ADSB installed, you won't see that. All right, so let me go back one. And yeah, that's all it is as far as connection goes between the IFD100 and the actual iPad, or sorry, the IFD and the actual iPad with IFD100. And I'll show you a couple of things here real quick. So you can change your frequencies up on here. We live in Melbourne, or we're based in Melbourne, so I'll just go Melbourne Tower and Ground. 1182 is Melbourne Tower. Pops up in the standby here. Just going to flip that over, and we'll just go 121.9 Melbourne Ground. So you can't flip the frequencies here on the IFD. You can only do that with the actual frequency swap button, but everything else works exactly the same. You can build a flight plan here pretty quickly. So we started off in Jacksonville, and let's go to just Melbourne. There's a simple direct flight, and it'll show up on your map. One question we get a lot with the IFD 100, which I'll address here as well, is how do you get north up versus track up? So right there, where we have our track up displayed, all you have to do is tap that box. Let's try that again. There we go. And now it goes track up. So originally it was north up. Now it's track up, or heading up, depending on what kind of configuration you have. And if you tap it again a third time, what happens, it goes track or heading up, but now the aircraft is in the middle of the actual map. So those are your three views. So we'll go north up, track or heading up, but the aircraft is kind of lower on the map. And then aircraft is in the middle of the map, but still track or heading up. So that's all there is to it as far as IFD 100. So now getting into ForeFlight. So just to kind of go over all these steps again, I'll even disconnect from all the Wi-Fis. Let's see here, I'll just forget the network for a moment. There we go. So just as before, we've started up the IFDs, right? We already have ForeFlight downloaded on our iPad. So all we're going to do is turn on the IFDs. As before, we'll go to the auxiliary button, open up connectivity, make sure Wi-Fi is on. All right. Let's go ahead and connect the iPad to the actual IFD Wi-Fi. So it's A, B, C, D, E, F. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we've joined, shows the check mark next to Avidyne Wi-Fi. Let me just go ahead and open up ForeFlight. Let me just close that out. Sometimes it does that. And while that's booting up there, we'll also discuss a couple of settings preferences in the actual ForeFlight app that don't live in the main settings of the iPad. So we have an emulated GPS position. It starts us off in Jacksonville, Craig, or Jacksonville International. So here we are. So once you have ForeFlight opened up, press the map button. So let me move this down a little bit. So press the map button, and then you're going to go up here, press the settings icon. Once we're on the settings, we're going to scroll down and go to Avidyne IFD. See how it says connected. The last setting on here is auto download user waypoints. You'll want to actually turn this off. For some reason, it does cause some flight plan transfer problems, but ForeFlight did with, I forget what release of software it was that they made, but one of the changes they made was adding this option in here, and that helped out with some of the connectivity issues that some people have. So once that's done, you're connected to the IFD using ForeFlight, right? We still have ourself set to allow always here, and ADSB over Wi-Fi is turned on. All right. And if we wanted to, I'll just move this back one. Just for a simple flight plan transfer, I'll clear us out of here. All right, so we're starting off in Jacksonville. Go to flight plan, and I'll do the same thing. I'll do 3 airports this time, going south. So we'll start in Kilo, Juliet, Alpha, X-ray, and then we're going to go to Kilo, Mike, Lima, Bravo, Melbourne, and let's just go down to, oh, I don't know, let's go to Kilo, Foxtrot, Lima, Lima, Fort Lauderdale. All right, we'll hide the keyboard real quick. We have a view of our flight plan right down the coast to Fort Lauderdale. All we're going to do, and I'll zoom in for this, is we're going to tap on this little airplane icon in like a radiating parentheses, I guess you could call it. We're going to hit send to panel. All right, that goes away for a moment. We'll come over to the IFD. All you have to do is press the FMS button. So we're already there. Press the route tab. And notice one of the routes here is KJAX to KFLL. I suppose I should have shown that before that this wasn't preloaded, but I can delete it and try again. So I'll just clear out this message real quick. Delete that. There we go. So I'm just going to send it to the panel again so you can see. And it pops up brand new right there. So all you have to do is move the cursor either by touching the screen or with the knobs over that flight plan, and then press the activate
Zoom
route.
back out a little bit.
All right. And then press the activate route line select key, and there you go. That flight plan has now been loaded into the flight plan tab. You have each individual one. Doesn't matter how simple or complex the flight plan is, it'll transfer over from ForeFlight to the IFD. So the next thing I'd like to show is how to do split screen between the IFD100 and the iPad. So we already have ForeFlight going here. So all I'm going to do is move this into portrait mode and bring the camera down a little bit so we can see everything a little bit better. So there's 2 ways of doing this, and one of them I've written up here, so I'll start with that one first. So all you're going to do is drag your finger up from the bottom of the screen, and that brings up the last used apps. So all I'm going to do is, I'm already on ForeFlight. I'm going to put my finger over IFD100, drag it to the left side or the right side, and let go of it. And we'll just hit start. And there we go. The same flight plan that's in the IFD right now is reflected in the IFD 100. We have all our frequencies connected and a GPS position, so it'll actually show us where we are and where we're going. So the second way of doing this, I'll just close out ForeFlight, and here we are back to full screen, is there's these three little dots at the top of the screen, and this is the same thing with the IFD 100. All you have to do is tap that, split, and then select IFD 100, 10.3, press start again, and there we are, back to square one. So that really does it for the IFD interconnect with IFD 100 and ForeFlight, and I hope that this addresses a lot of questions. Of course, if you have any others, feel free to give us a call. We still have the promotion going on for the free installation, which is a $300 credit for each IFD sold, and that's going through January 31st. So we still have that going on, and that's 2 hours of labor for $150 an hour as a shop rate, just as an estimate. As usual, we have all our resources, which includes our Avidyne YouTube channel. Even this webinar will be there. Avidyne.com for all our pilot guides and our pilot knowledge base. We also have a live chat feature, which is now available on Avidyne.com to chat directly with tech support, including people like myself. So that's Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. If you have any questions, feel free to email us to techsupport@avidyne.com and pilotsupport@avidyne.com. And make sure to check out our social media pages. Avidyne Pilots Club is a good place, so you can learn from a lot of people there. A lot of knowledgeable people that might have different ways of doing things, because with the IFDs, there's so many ways that you can do the same thing. Each person has their own preference, and they're all pretty good. And now we'll open it up to any questions and answers. Tom, Billy?
Here's a question. Is there a way to keep the IFD 100 from overriding the 540, 440 every time the IFD 100 connects to 540? I had this happen when I made a route change in the 540, then the 100 overwrites the 540 when I bring it back in focus after checking weather in ForeFlight. So my comment on that is you're better off using it in split screen so that they're always in focus. I'm not sure what I don't know, Will, if you run into that problem. Other folks?
I have not run into that problem, but I can try and do some testing. I flight instruct almost every day in the mornings and sometimes on the weekends. So in an airplane with IFDs, I can definitely test that out when I'm up there with my students, having them do some foggle work or something like that under the hood.
Reach out to pilot support at Avidyne with your specific problem. We'll see if we can run it to ground for you. Thanks for the question. Is there a way to swap frequencies after selecting in the IFD 100? And the short answer is no.
Yeah, it still has to be done through the actual button on the IFD.
And I think that was when we first certified, the FAA was reluctant to let us do that because of an inadvertent frequency change from the remote. So you can pre-tune into the standbys, but you have to deliberately transfer it using the bezel mounted transfer button. Or if you have there is a pin on the back that you'd have to have wired to a yoke switch for a remote transfer. For some reason that's okay, but the iPad, they wouldn't let us. So maybe we can get that changed in a future software release or something. But so we'll take that kind of comment to heart though. Here's one. I have a Lynx transponder installed in the airplane as well. It connects to my iPad via its Wi-Fi. Can I connect all, including the IFD, at the same time?
Well, I have a couple of comments or a bit of advice on that as well, because I've been asked a similar kind of question. If your IFD is already receiving the traffic and weather from the Lynx transponder, then that means that same weather and traffic can be broadcasted from the IFD, which that information is coming from the Lynx now to the iPad. You can't connect multiple devices to different sources of Wi-Fi at the same time, so it's only going to be one, either the IFD Wi-Fi or the Lynx. So it just depends on what you have going on. With 10.3, it does allow you to use another source of Wi-Fi as the, I guess you could call it the hub or the internet hub for all the connections. So you could connect your iPad through the Lynx to the IFD, and you'll get all the transfer of flight plan information and traffic and weather, but it depends on the Wi-Fi protocol. It has to be capstone protocol in order for it to be able to do that, which that's something you would have to check with the manufacturer. I'm sure that Lynx probably just uses capstone, so I don't see any problems with that. But if you have any difficulty setting that up, you can give us a call. We're more than happy to try and test it out.
One of the questions had to do with he's running the Stratus 3 with the iPad, the IFD100, and it has a tendency to disconnect in flight, and he's not loses his ADS-B. And what I'm wondering is, I think you might comment on, Will, is you really only want to have one Wi-Fi broadcasting in the cockpit, because it can the iPad might want to switch between them and you'll get problems. So make sure you have a clean cockpit in terms of allowing the IFD to be your central hub there.
That could also be something with the Stratus 3. I have seen this before, and actually our next webinar, which is going to address the Stratus, which we have one to actually show, it's the Stratus has to be configured using the Horizon app, the Stratus's Horizon app, to use open ADS-B mode. And if you have ForeFlight running in the background, ForeFlight tends to hijack it and puts it back into ForeFlight mode, which then kicks off the traffic and weather information going to the IFD100, because the IFD in your aircraft, as well as the IFD100, will only accept that capstone protocol traffic and weather.
So here, I use a Stratus 3 receiver with the 540 and ForeFlight. Any difference in process to include the IFD100?
Just kind of like what I mentioned on there, you'll have to get the Stratus Horizon app and just configure it to be open ADS-B. But the thing is, when you go from IFD100 back to ForeFlight, unless you do split screen, ForeFlight every time is going to ask you, do you want to go into ForeFlight mode? And you're going to have to not allow that. But otherwise, setup really remains the same. We have another webinar coming up on this soon, and we also have some videos on YouTube already showing how to do this. But if you have any specific questions on that, with the information out there, if it's not sufficient, we can help you out.
Here's a good one. Must the iPad be in landscape mode for screen sharing? I don't have room to rotate. Yes, it won't split.
Yeah, that's the reason why.
It runs out of room. So yeah, he says he can't fit his iPad in a landscape mode. Unfortunately, that is a limitation of split screen. Good question. It seems to, here's a question from Gary. It seems IFD 100 populated in real time, whereas ForeFlight only populated after pressing the transmit button. Is that accurate? Does it happen with en route changes as well with ForeFlight because you sync with the button?
So anytime you have a change that's made in IFD 100 or in the IFD in your aircraft, those will update in real time. So the IFD 100 really is like a remote control to the IFD, and anything that's done on either will result in a real-time change. But with ForeFlight, it's just their protocol. ForeFlight will not change anything in real time like the IFD 100.
Yeah, you have to manually either go to devices and sync it, or do like he said and just reload it, and it will update. It is manual. It is the way they wanted us to do it, or the way they do it. And the same is true if you you can do like a rubber band edit or something in ForeFlight, and then you'd have to force it back down to the IFD if you want the IFD to do what to incorporate the edit you made in ForeFlight. You have to manually force it back through. It doesn't update in real time, but IFD 100 does. Is there a way to lock, password protect the settings on the IFDs?
So Password protected. I'm sorry, say the question again, Tom.
So I guess if someone else is in your airplane, you don't want to mess in with your settings. Is there a way to password protect the settings?
No, there really isn't. My recommendation would be to change the users. So you have different user profiles here, and you can name them different things.
So when you're not in the airplane, put it on a different user. When you get in, go back to your user. And
Yep, exactly. That's what I
that's a
do.
good way of doing it. Here's a question. Am I going to be prompted to log into Jepp every time I open IFD100?
So you always end up on that splash screen where it has your username and password. If there isn't a need to update the databases, all you have to do is press start in the lower left-hand corner.
I have ADS-B in. Why would traffic only show on the IFD100 but not ForeFlight in split screen?
Well, my follow-up question to that would be, does it work with just ForeFlight? But the second thing would be possibly a filter in ForeFlight. But yeah, I mean, when I fly, I do have a traffic overlay as well as all the weather. So
there's really no reason it shouldn't work. So you may want to
yeah,
just send a text to pilot support at Avidyne.com and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on there. Okay, here's another question. The start of this presentation said to use 10.3 software. I get an error on my iPad saying to use 10.2. Does this matter? Does that
so
mean the
that's
IFD's only got 10.2?
yeah. Usually that means the IFD has 10.2.
So you need to just make a match. If you've got an IFD 10.2 software, then I think the 10.2 version of the IFD 100 is still up on the iTunes store. You can download the older version. Once you upgrade your IFD, then you'll need to delete that and download the new version 10.3 of IFD 100. Let's see. When you send a flight plan to the IFD, did the flight plan activate automatically?
No. So when you actually do that in ForeFlight in a aircraft with an IFD that's not in demo mode, you have to activate the flight plan, or once you take off, it should usually activate. But with the demo mode, you probably saw that it automatically activated. That's not normal. That's not how it actually works. You'll have to go in there and actually press the activate flight plan line select key.
When I boot up the IFD, I used to have an accept banner come up, but don't know now. Do I need to see the Wi-Fi symbol?
Yeah, that went away with 10.3 software.
But if you hold the power button on the IFD for about 2 seconds and let go, it'll show that old screen you're talking about. So if you're in the air and you want to hand your iPad to the kid in the back seat, now you don't want that iPad to connect to the IFD anymore. Push and hold that power button for 2 seconds and then let go. Can you flight plan at home and bring to the airplane for pre-flight? Absolutely, with ForeFlight.
With ForeFlight, yes, not with the IFD 100.
All right. I think I've covered most of the questions on here, if not all of them. Hopefully I didn't miss any of yours. If you have any other questions, feel free to send them to pilot support at Avidyne.com, or if you have a request for anything else, to marketing at Avidyne.com, and we'll get you taken care of offline. All right, well.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much, Billy.
Appreciate it. Fly safe, everybody. Have a good day.